Uh, Welcome to the ET Now Global Business Summit. I always take a pride when I say anything with ET Now, so it's ET Now GBS. Now my guest, Ray Dalio, I would say my colleagues Avan and Vikram, well, they've not introduced the real fact, which is that Mr. Dalio has made, as a practitioner, as somebody who's a historian, but is also a practitioner, highest amount of wealth ever for his clients. Are you interested in hearing how he's made the wealth? Should I carry on with this session? Highest amount of wealth ever been made by a hedge fund manager for his clients. Mr. Dalio, I guess that's a powerful introduction, right?
So glad to be here.
It's such a pleasure, Mr. Dalio, to have you on ET Now GBS. Mr. Dalio, you always look at world, sir, based on 5 factors: economy and credit, internal peace and conflict, external issues between countries, climate change, and technology. If you have to look at the mechanics of the world, rather than giving our audience a fish to eat, if they have to catch the trick, how to catch the next fish, how would you put your thoughts into play and explain some of these pointers? The number one being, sir, economy and credit.
Thank you for asking me, and thank you for having me there today. Yes, you're right. My goal is to explain the mechanics of this, and then we can reflect on what's happening. As you say, I'm a practical investor who has to make macroeconomic investment decisions every day. And I learned in my life that many things that surprised me didn't happen in my lifetime, but happened many times in history. So there were 3 big forces that drew my attention to study history over the last 500 years, and then I discovered the other 2 of the 5. But the first is to understand the mechanics of credit, money, debt, and economics. In other words, credit gives buying power. Credit also creates debt. Debt has to be paid back. That debt has to be paid back with hard money or soft money because they print more money. If that debt goes to create productivity, it raises living standards and it's successful. And so that dynamic has happened, but in a most important way in the United States, which is the world's treasury market that the interest rates all around the world are operating by, produced an enormous amount of credit and debt, and are continuing to produce an enormous amount of credit and debt that is having an effect on the interest rates and the money markets and the economy, which we will go into in a second. That very much relates to the internal political issues. So when we talk about internal, we're dealing with conflict internally. It's particularly important in the United States, but it exists in every country. That internal populism has emerged, particularly in the United States, in which there is a populist, meaning almost an extremist of the left and an extremist of the right, that have irreconcilable differences. And we're going to have not only an election, but a risk of unacceptable conflict in that political situation and the social situation that exists in varying degrees in different countries, but particularly in the United States, most importantly. Right. And then, of course, there's the third influence, which is the change in the global world order, the relative power of countries, and how the system works. In 1945, we created the world order that we're in. The way these world orders develop is there's a great war, and then the dominant power and powers decide how that works. And then there's a system. The reason that the United Nations is in New York and the World Bank and IMF are in Washington, D.C. is because of that dominant power. And that world shift is taking place, and India, of course, is right in the middle of that. That dynamic operating with the financial and the internal conflict creates a classic dynamic that we've seen repeat over time. And number four is droughts, floods, and pandemics, acts of nature, have caused more deaths and have caused more falls of governance systems, of orders, than any of the other ones. And we see that with climate change and the costs of climate change, just the financial costs of climate change, that's a big consideration. And of course, over time, number five, is the inventiveness of mankind, and that goes with new technologies. And we're seeing this dynamic play out. Right. And what I saw and covered in a study of mine, which is then written in a book called The Changing World Order. That right. The Changing World Order, I did a video also on it. You see these patterns happen over and over again. So when we look at them, that interrelationships, very important.
Right, sir. Mr. Dalio, you have your proprietary models in which you look at country, productivity, as well as you predict the growth. So based on your internal models, where does India stack up? From fragile 5, Mr. Dalio, India is now top 5 in the world.
In my book, and again called The Changing World Order, we use statistics that go back for many, many, many years to predict the next 10 years growth rate. India is projected to have the fastest growth rate in the world of any sizable economy. And that's why the basics, what are the basics? You're seeing a combination of the development of a middle class. And with that development, you're seeing vast improvements in education levels and in infrastructure. And with those, you're also seeing capital formation, which enables that combination of education, efficiency, improved efficiency, and with that capital formation creates the opportunity of people to be very productive. At the same time, measurements like what is the cost of an educated person? This is across societies. Very attractive in India. Also, civility. Do you have order? There's great disorder now in a number of countries, and it's worsening in the United States. So there's this ability to have that population. Demographics play a role too.
Right.
Of a relatively young population. And so another factor is always key, and that is to be to be neutral, or to be not in the midst of conflicts, such as the conflicts that exist between the United States and China. So all of these are measurable, and they indicate a growth rate, and it can't be precise, but in the vicinity of per capita growth rate, and there'll be growth in the population. It'll be somewhere in the vicinity of 6.5%, give or take a little bit, and that will be the strongest in the the large economies.
Right. Mr. Dalio, in your book, you always refer to history as a benchmark, which is that there was a time in the world when guilder was the reserve currency in the world. Then that moved to franc, to the Great Britain pound, now dollar. But looking at the state of the US debt, what are the chances, and audience wants to really hear your views on that, what are the chances that US dollar could lose its reserve currency status?
I should say that what happens is, in the United States, if should it weaken its currency status, You'd see other countries also have weaker currencies, and then there would be an emergence of alternatives such as, most importantly, likely gold. Or currencies tend to depreciate together. But it's true that what happens in the United States or in history, there's a financial component. If you have a lot of debt, and the United States has a lot of debt that most importantly results in a lot of sales of debt, that money probably has to be printed, and there's a squeeze emerging. Invest in innovation and productivity, those productivity activities, and avoid indebtedness, debt assets, minimize the debt assets, and then to diversify into various locations. I would say that no one country should be, no one asset class, no one country, no one currency should be concentrated in because of the nature of that. So look at those good places and then look for good leadership. I must say that your leadership, particularly Prime Minister Modi's leadership and the stability and the support, the broad level of support, is a very important thing. So the three things I look at are, first, is the country, if I'm looking at a country, but it's true for businesses as well. Do they earn more than they spend? Are the financials good? Do they have internal competitiveness and cohesiveness so that there could be a healthy competition to raise productivity? And number three, are they in the middle of an international conflict, the world order that becomes threatening to them in a type of war, or are they more neutral? Those environments in which they have their sound finances, productivity with people working together in a civil way, and those minimizations of the risks of international conflict are the fundamentals that I look for.
Mr. Dalio, you're bullish on India. Fundamentally, it's the good place to be in. Growth is enviable in the world. What will it take for your firm to come to India and invest either in the equity market or the real estate market or the debt market? What kind of regulations would you say are important for you to come here?
We're primarily liquid investors, and the markets, the public markets, have some issues to be dealt with. They're relatively illiquid. They're still overregulated. There are issues about taxes. There are concerns about capital controls. And as a result, foreign investment in your government bond market, for example, is only 1% of the bond market. In terms of corporate bond markets, only 2%. That results, by the way, in interest rates being higher than they ordinarily would be if it was more open. So I think that there needs to be the development, the type of reduced regulations that you've seen in other aspects of the markets and the economy, reduced regulations, increased efficiency, all of those reforms would be very beneficial for that stock market, I think, or the bond market. So I think those are the things that are needed.
So I have time to ask one more last question, and I'm sure audience is ready for this last final question. Is Ray Dalio ready?
I'll do my best.
You're talking about demand and supply, and my question to you is that all my friends have one thing, which is that we want to work for Ray Dalio. He's not hiring. Why is it so difficult to get a job at Bridgewater?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
I was just making
clearly.
a job
Could you repeat
application.
it?
You didn't hear me. My question is, why is it so difficult to get a job at your firm?
You broke up again where the connection
Really?
isn't so good. Could you?
Really?
I apologize.
Okay. I'll try my level best. I'll go slow this time. And when you're making a case for a application, that's what the normal response is. So audience, don't be surprised. Why is it difficult to get a job at Bridgewater? Why is it so difficult?
We have the highest possible standards. I'm sure it's true for your universities, your best companies. We try to get the best, and the best is a small percentage, the top fraction of a percent.
I'm tempted.
But there's great talent. We welcome.
I'm tempted to share a secret. Are you guys ready for a secret of Ray Dalio? Ray Dalio meditates every day. Ray Dalio believes in the power of meditation. And Ray Dalio, I would encourage you to share your experience about meditation.
Meditation has had more of a beneficial effect on my life than I think almost anything. It has given me the equanimity, the centeredness, the clarity of thought to be able to approach all the issues in a much better way. And it's given me also health that reduces stress and so on. Meditation, I give meditation to people. I have teachers teach them because it's the best gift I can give anyone.
Well, Mr. Dalio, what a pleasure to have you as part of ET Now GBS. Thank you very much for time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the man who has made the highest number of returns for clients as an hedge fund ever. Let's put our hands together. And we certainly hope to see much more of you, Mr. Dalio, in India next time. Thank you very much. With that, I'll give it back to my colleagues, Awan and Vikram.